men, infantry, archers, horsemen, armed with spears, axes, and courage. Young peasants, grizzled veterans, priests and nobles, all under one banner. He spoke little, but when he did, his voice carried power. From the west, the Teutonic force marched east again, led by Marshal Hermann von Balp, a cold and ruthless knight from the German nobility. Behind him, perhaps 2,500 men, Livonian cavalry. In the far west, the Christian kingdoms of Castile, Aragon, and Portugal fought to reclaim the Iberian Peninsula from Muslim rule. In the east, crusaders had carved out principalities in the Holy Land, and Latin swords had struck deep into the heart of Constantinople, tearing down the once mighty Byzantine Empire during the Fourth Crusade. But even this wasn't enough. Now the papacy turned its gaze to the cold and distant lands of the northeast, to the vast forests, freezing rivers, and ancient cities of the Rus, to Novgorod, Pskov, and the lands beyond the Great Lakes. The Teutonic Knights, warriors hardened by decades of crusades in Prussia and Livonia, were ready. Pope Gregory IX gave them a holy task: bring Catholicism to the pagans of the north, or destroy them. German and Danish bishops supported the cause, but their aims were not just spiritual. They wanted land, gold, and submission from the free peoples of the East. In 1240, over 2,000 Teutonic, Livonian, and Danish troops crossed into the lands of the Novgorod Republic. They swept through the borderlands with fire and steel, sacking villages, burning churches, forcing the Orthodox clergy to flee. The city of Pskov, one of the most important outposts of the north, was taken. Its walls opened, its people subdued by knights in white cloaks marked with black crosses. Convert them, or destroy them. Terror spread like wildfire. Crosses were shattered, icons thrown into the dirt, churches turned to ash. The ancient bells of Pskov were silenced. But even in the darkest hours, one name rose through the storm: Alexander Yaroslavich, later known as Nevsky, Prince of Novgorod. Just 2 years earlier, at only 20 years old, he had led a small Russian force to victory at the Battle of the Neva, driving back a Swedish invasion along the shores of the Neva River. But success breeds envy. The boyars, Novgorod's powerful merchant nobles, feared his growing fame, so they exiled him. But when Pskov fell, the people begged for his return. He answered with quiet strength, "He who raises his sword against Rus, by the sword shall he fall." Nevsky returned not with pride, but with purpose. The chronicles say he walked through his soldiers' camp in silence, praying not for victory, but for the strength to do what must be done. He united warriors from Novgorod and nearby towns, around 4,000 men, infantry, archers, horsemen, armed with spears, axes, and courage. Young peasants, grizzled veterans, priests and nobles, all under one banner. He spoke little, but when he did, his voice carried power. From the west, the Teutonic force marched east again, led by Marshal Hermann von Balp, a cold and ruthless knight from the German nobility. Behind him, perhaps 2,500 men, Livonian cavalry, Danish heavy knights, German crusaders, and Baltic militias. They moved through snow and forest, their banners flying over the white landscape. At night, they lit candles in wooden chapels and prayed for salvation. At dawn, they drew steel, marching under the promise of eternal reward. But the land itself turned against them. Blizzards tore through their camps. Frostbitten limbs were lost to the cold, but they kept marching toward Lake Peipus. Meanwhile, Nevsky's army advanced across the same frozen terrain. Crossing rivers, war drums echoed through the trees. Orthodox priests blessed icons carved onto wooden shields. They were not marching to conquer, they were marching to defend their homeland, to protect their way of life. April 5th, 1242. Lake Peipus, near today's Estonian-Russian border. A wide, frozen sheet of ice stretching for miles. Dawn rose, wrapped in thick fog. The ice groaned under the weight of the approaching army. From the mist came the Teutonic host, knights in shining armor, their white mantles marked with black crosses. They formed a wedge, a deadly formation known as the Schweinkopf, or boar's snout, and charged. Alexander Nevsky stood at the center of his line. He had chosen this ground for a reason. Then, the charge. The knights thundered forward, but Nevsky's men opened their ranks and let the charge pass through. Then from the sides, the trap was sprung. Russian archers fired from the wings. Spearmen surged forward. The Teutonic formation buckled. And then it happened. The ice cracked, broke, shattered beneath their weight. Men and horses plunged into the freezing waters of Lake Peipus. Heavy armor dragged them down. Screams filled the air. Prayers turned to panic. One German knight, later captured, wrote, "We had God, but they had the land, and the land saved them." The battle on the ice was not just a victory, it was a turning point. The Teutonic Order was broken. Their crusade against the Orthodox Rus was stopped cold, literally. Nevsky, ever wise, spared many of the surviving knights. He sent them back west with a message. Novgorod bows to no man but God. The Pope's interest in a northern crusade faded. The Teutonic Order shifted its focus back to Prussia. The Orthodox Church in Russia held its ground. Alexander Nevsky became more than a man, he became a symbol. Canonized in 1547, he became a saint. And today, in the city of St. Petersburg, a statue stands tall, silent, unshaken. A sentinel of memory, a prince of the frost, a shadow slayer who crossed the ice and changed the fate of nations.